Greetings! Welcome back to the Spirit Walker channel. I hope you're well. We are outside today, so there could be a little bit of background noise, so bear with me, but the settings are nicer. But the purpose of today's video is to look at the Mandela Effect in the context of the simulated reality theory. There are quite a lot of people suggesting that reality as we know, as we see, everything around us, could be a computer simulation. That is a very interesting theory, but I don't know if I subscribe to it. But it's something that needs to be taken into consideration as well. So we should see what type of evidence we could find to support or refute this theory. And in parallel, we should look at how things could be explained or otherwise using this theory. So what we're going to discuss today is the Mandela Effect in the context of the simulated reality theory, or the computer simulation reality. So what is the computer simulated reality? It's a theory that suggests that we all live in a computer simulation, just in the same way that we have computer games, like the World of Warcraft, or The Sims, or Minecraft. In the same way that we have these environments and characters and avatars and simulated situations, we could be in such a reality. So we could be in a reality where everything around us is fake, or everything around us is just a representation of some type of program or some type of algorithm. Now, there are some factors that suggest, or at least support, the idea that we could be in a computer simulation. So the first one that I would like to point out is this idea that was put forward by philosopher Nick Bostrom. And his thinking is quite logical. It's quite interesting. He suggests, okay, let's imagine that a civilization, a very highly advanced civilization, has been able to develop computers and to develop a computer simulation, a very highly realistic computer simulation. And why would they do this? Well, for whatever reasons. For the reasons that we develop games, or it could be to study behavior, or just to learn more about themselves, and to learn more about artificial intelligence, or to learn more about behavior in general. Now, you could have this first real civilization inventing a simulated reality. Within this simulated reality, the civilization within the simulated reality could eventually also simulate another reality, and so on and so forth. So in this theory, you could have a initial civilization that is real, and then you could have a whole chain of simulated civilizations. Now, if that is real, or if that is if you consider that possibility, what you realize is that you have one civilization that is the original and was the real civilization, and you would have an infinity of other civilizations, and they will all be subsequent, they will all be simulated. So just by the sheer probability of things. You would have, let's say, a very large number of simulated civilizations and just one civilization that was the original and was real. So just by the probability, if you're going to place yourself somewhere in this chain, it is far more likely that you would be one of these simulated civilizations rather than the first one that was real. It's just a probability. It's not an impossibility, but the probability that you would turn out to be exactly that first civilization that was real, that probability is really very, very low. Some people, for example, point to the fact that the brain is utterly incapable of perceiving reality. So what we perceive is just electric impulses that are decoded by our senses and transformed into information within our brain. There is no, if you come to think of it, there is no real interaction between our mind and reality that is not transduced or translated via some type of sense. So in that perspective, even if reality is real, the perception of that reality would be something that is completely simulated. So for example, if I remove my glasses and I put some, red lenses, I'm going to see everything red. So my reality would be pretty much everything red. So my perception of the reality would be completely dependent on the filter that I use to perceive. So those that suggest that this could be the case, they are arguing that, look, we already live in a situation where it's absolutely impossible to know if anything is real or not. Then, if we were living in a simulation, we would not know. Then there is another factor, which is the computer simulation reality resolves some physical problems that theoreticians have. So there are equations that don't explain the way that we perceive the universe. So, for example, the Big Bang theory is I'm not a physicist, but my understanding is that the Big Bang theory has a lot of holes in it, and it's by no means a unanimity in the scientific community. And one of the very interesting factors about the simulated reality is that it would explain certain limitations that we have. So, for example, we can't travel, or apparently in this physical universe, we can't travel faster than the speed of light. I don't think that this is the case, but physicists, they believe that that's the case. We can't travel faster than the speed of light. I think, and you're going to find videos, my other videos that also talk about this. Particles could travel above the speed of light. They will be superluminar. So that actually means that they would have negative entropy, and I believe that this is what the astral world or the astral frequency is all about. It's about particles traveling at speeds that are higher than the speed of light. But this is an aside. So in this physical world, the materialists are going to tell you that there are some very strict limits that we can't breach. So, for example, we wouldn't be able to travel faster than the speed of light. We can't travel into the sun, for example, that which is a white hole. So all of these limits, according to some people, test that these are the limitations of a computer program. So for example, if you're playing in a game such as I don't know, civilization, you have limitations. So at some point you will reach the end of the map in that computer simulation, and you won't be able to get across. That limitation is a function of the processing power of your computer, but it's also a function of the design of the simulation, because the computer programmers would not want an avatar to realize that he or she lives inside the simulation. Therefore, the computer simulation would be circumscribed by certain limitations, so you wouldn't be able to go beyond these borders. And the limitation that we have, that I just mentioned, about the speed of light, black holes, about white holes, etc., so they could figure as specific limitations that were imposed just so we don't realize that we live in a simulation. That's another a proposition that is out there. And the other thing as well, and I think this is quite a strong argument, is that at the quantum level, nothing exists independently of the mind. So, for example, you have the double slit experiment, that the result of the experiment changes whether there is a conscious observer or not. So this is a result of the mind acting on matter. And this is consistent with a computer simulator or universe. Why? Because if you have a simulation, think of a game, think of Minecraft, for example. If there is no one playing Minecraft in a shared environment, then the program is not running the simulation. Therefore, nothing really exists. The only things that exist are certain instructions that would tell the computer to, as soon as someone logs in, and as soon as someone starts playing as an avatar, then you build all of these objects and scenarios and sceneries. But as soon as that person logs out of the game, as soon as that avatar is destroyed or discontinued in the game, then there is no need for the computer to keep producing that simulated reality, because no one is there to watch it. No one is there to interact with it. So these sound strangely, very, very strangely similar to the quantum dilemma, that at a subatomic particle level, or at a subatomic level, nothing really exists independently of an observer being there. So this is very interesting, and it's a possibility. It's one of the factors that some people use, or one of the arguments that some people use to suggest that we indeed live in a simulated reality. Now, the question that I have is, does it matter? Does it really matter that we live in a computer reality, or in a reality that we can't differentiate whether it's real or simulated? I don't think it matters at all. You look at the Bible, for example, and the Bible says God created the universe, and God maintains the universe, and God is everywhere. How is that different from a programmer created a virtual reality, and a programmer maintains this virtual reality, and this programmer has access to everything in this simulated reality. It's from a certain point of view, it's not different at all. What would be the Mandela effect? What would the Mandela effect feel like if we were in a simulated reality? So first of all, remember that the world will not really exist. So everything that would exist would be just a set of instructions. The instructions would be something like this. Every time someone logs into the computer, so in other words, every time you have an avatar that is playing with this reality, you create this reality in a way that it's going to interact with that avatar. And if there is another avatar in the same environment, they should have the same experiences. So for example, if you're seeing a blue car and next to you there is another person, that other person should also see a blue car. That person should never see a yellow car. These are just the rules of the game. So rules of the computer simulated reality. Who would be in control? Because in this reality, we used to say that, look, it's our higher selves that are in control here. It's our higher selves. They build the universe. They build the reality from an esoteric point of view, from a theosophical or spiritist point of view. It is our higher selves that create the reality that we're in. And you even see a lot of these new age people saying, look, you create your own reality. It's actually your higher self that creates that reality. And if you are in contact with your higher self, and if your minds are aligned, then you could eventually say that yes, you create reality, because the higher self, that is a portion of you that indeed co-creates reality, is thinking the same things that you are. So yes, you could see that in that sense. Now, the proposition that I have to you here is, what if our higher selves are just a computer programmer? A computer programmer creates a simulated reality. In the same way that we say, or esoterics say, that the higher self creates the world where we live in. You realize that there is a consistency between the esoteric idea of our own higher selves creating reality, and our higher selves are the part of us that already live in permanent contact with God. So it's God in us, or even the Holy Spirit, if you could think like that. There is a consistency between that view of the world and the view of the world where the higher self could be a computer programmer, and we could be just avatars. We could just be here experiencing this world in the same way that an avatar in Minecraft experiences the simulated world. Now, one very interesting thing that I wanted to say is, for example, do you know that some people do have what seem to be superhuman powers? Jesus walks on water, and people can do amazing healing deeds. What if these instances were just the avatar in communication with the programmer, with the co-creator, and the co-creator or the programmer suspending the laws of the simulation for a little while? So, for example, if you fall on water, you're going to sink and you're going to drown. But if your avatar had some way to communicate with the programmer outside the simulation, maybe the programmer would have a way to suspend that water, suspend that law, suspend the law of gravity, for example, for that particular instance. And maybe this is how some people can do miraculous things. Maybe it's all about a temporary suspension of the laws of the simulation. Do you also know how, for example, when you have someone that was hypnotized, they could actually see through things? I've seen examples of hypnosis sessions where someone held an object in their back, and the hypnotized person was ahead of them, and the hypnotized person or the hypnotist suggested, look, this person is transparent. You can see through this person. So what is the object that the person is holding behind him or behind her? And the hypnotized person that was on the other side, they did guess correctly. How is that even possible? How can you... So does it mean that when you are hypnotized you have X-ray vision? Well, no, maybe it's not like that at all. Maybe somehow by being hypnotized, your consciousness somehow is able to transcend the limits of the computer simulation. Maybe that's how it works. So maybe when you are under hypnosis, you have access to information that sits outside the computer simulation. Maybe that is what the subconscious is a part of your mind that somehow sits outside the computer simulation, the limits of the map, so to speak, in terms of a computer game such as Civilization. So perhaps your subconscious is the part of you that has access to the code of the computer simulation in which we live. Maybe that's it. I don't know, it's just a theory. I would like you to discuss. If you have any views, it would be really interesting if you could share them in below, section below. Now, what about the Mandela Effect? How does all that fit with the Mandela Effect? Now, let me just propose something to you that I think you're going to find interesting. Do you remember when you're running a computer game, let's say Civilization, because it's a game that I really enjoy, and something happens, something bad happens, maybe your civilization is not strong enough, or maybe your major cities were invaded by your opponent, by the artificial intelligence. And then you say, okay, screw this, I don't want this game, I'm going to restart the game. And then you go back and you restart. Or maybe you go back, you stop the game and you go back to where you last saved the game. And then you go back to that point, and then from that point on you take the game and you continue playing. Maybe this is what the Mandela Effect is. Maybe the Mandela Effect is a type of reboot of our simulated reality, if our reality is indeed simulated. Maybe the Mandela Effect is something akin to the programmer or the programmers stopping the simulation at a certain point, going back to a point where they had previously saved the game, and resuming the game from that point on in another sequence of events, in another sequence of developments. So in other words, in a new timeline. So if our consciousness, or at least our subconscious, is something that can escape the limits of the game, the limits of the computer simulation, maybe our subconscious has a type of memory of that first game that was interrupted. So now we have this world in which we are in a timeline, but we remember, so we are in a simulation, a sequence of simulated events and frameworks and places and people, etc. But we remember, we still hold memories of another line of game, another simulation where we had a slightly different framework, a slightly different environment, but that simulation no longer exists. That simulation was discontinued. So maybe in that other simulation, C3PO was all gold. And that simulation stopped. Maybe something bad happened. That simulation stopped. The programmers went back some time and rebooted the simulation or restarted the simulation. And today we have a different simulation, but we still have some residual memories. That is a possibility. That is a very interesting possibility. So this is it. I'm very happy to continue discussing with you. Share your comments down below. Please, if you like this, share, subscribe, double subscribe, and please comment. And I'll see you next time. And God bless you.